Good afternoon and welcome to Assembly Committee on Commerce and Labor. Secretary, will you please take roll?
Assemblywoman Backus. Present. Assemblyman Carter.
Present.
Assemblywoman Duran.
Here.
Assemblywoman Hardy.
Here.
Assemblywoman Howdigi.
Here.
Assemblywoman Kasama.
Here.
Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno.
Here.
Assemblyman O'Neill.
Here.
Assemblywoman Torres.
Here.
Assemblyman Yeager.
Here.
Assemblyman Urick.
Here.
Chair Marzola.
Here. Thank you, everyone that is here in Carson City, anyone in Las Vegas, and everyone listening over the internet or the phone lines. Today, we have a very busy schedule. We're going to hear 4 bills: Senate Bill 147, Senate Bill 330, Senate Bill 381, and Senate Bill 437. In addition to that, we also have a work session. We will be doing our work session first. Before we get started, I have a few housekeeping announcements. Please turn off or silent all your electronic devices, whether your phones, computers. If you wish to testify, please sign in by the door. If you have a business card, please give it to the committee secretary. If you have handouts for the committee, please provide 20 copies to the committee secretary prior to your testimony. When testifying, please turn on your microphone and state and spell your name clearly. I expect courtesy and respect in all our interactions, even if we may not agree. And with that, we will start our work session. Work session is to take an action measures the committee has heard in previous meetings. It is not customary for the committee to take testimony or otherwise rehear a bill. However, I may invite a witness to come forward for clarification or questions during a consideration of a measure. And with that, we will start with Senate Bill 32. I will turn the meeting over to our policy analyst, Mrs. Thomas. You may begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 32 exempts persons engaged exclusively in transporting persons between certain states for certain purposes from provisions governing private investigators and related professions. It was sponsored on behalf of the Attorney General, heard on April 19th. There is one proposed amendment from the Attorney General's office, and that is to amend subsection 17 of Section 1 of the bill to revise the exemption from the provisions governing private investigators and other related professions to include a person or an employee of such person who is engaged exclusively in the business of transporting persons, 1, through the state for the purpose of a temporary transfer of custody or extradition, or 2, within the state for the purpose of a temporary or permanent transfer of custody between state, county, or city agencies.
Thank you. Members, are there any questions? I don't see any. I'll entertain a motion to amend and do pass on Senate Bill 32.
So moved.
I have a first from Vice Chair Howdigi, a second from Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno. Is there any discussion on the motion? I don't see any. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. I will assign that floor statement to Assemblywoman Torres. Our next bill is Senate Bill 40. Mrs. Thomas, you may begin when you're ready.
Senate Bill 40 revised provisions related to manufactured housing. It is sponsored on behalf of the Housing Division of the Department of Business and Industry, and there are no proposed amendments.
Thank you. Committee members, are there any questions? I don't see any. I'll take a motion to do pass on Senate Bill 40.
So moved.
I have a first from Vice Chair. Is there a second? A second from Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. I'll assign that floor statement to Assemblyman Carter. Our last bill on work session is Senate Bill 441. Mrs. Thomas, you may begin.
Senate Bill 441 revised provisions relating to public health is sponsored by Senator Dondero Loop, and there are no proposed amendments.
Thank you. Members, are there any questions on Senate Bill 441? I don't see any. I will take a motion to do pass.
So moved.
I have a first from Vice Chair Howdigi. I have a second from Assemblyman Urick. Is there any discussion on the motion? I don't see any. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Let the record show Assemblywoman Duran is a nay. Motion carries. I will assign that floor statement to Assemblywoman Backus. And with that, we will open our first bill hearing. I will be taking the bills out of order today. We will start with Senate Bill 381. Senator Harris, you may begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair Marzola and members of the Assembly Commerce and Labor Committee. My name is Dallas Harris. I represent Senate District 11. It is my pleasure to be with you all today for my first hearing in your esteemed body. I really appreciate you all taking the time to hear this bill. Hopefully, it will be one of the easiest that you hear all session. I know people often say that. I'm hoping it'll be true. Let's find out. Senate Bill 381 really is a simple bill. It says, hey, if the statute says that it's the landlord's responsibility to repair something related to habitability, then it's the landlord's responsibility. And we expect that landlords do not pass fees down to their tenants for those repairs. And in order to make that intent clear, we adopted an amendment on the Senate side that exempts whenever a tenant or someone they have allowed to be on the property is responsible for the damaged cause. There is nothing that changes when a landlord is responsible for repair, but we're not going to allow them to pass down those home warranty show-up fees or whatever other small type ticky-tacky fee they might have slipped into the lease down to their tenants. And with that, that ends my very quick presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee has.
Thank you for your concise presentation this Friday afternoon. Committee members, are there any questions? Assemblyman O'Neill.
Senator, it's great to see you. It really is. Thank you for coming over here and visiting with us. Just for clarification for me, when you say about the home warranty fees, if I'm the landlord and I've already included that in my base rent, are you saying that I can't include that in my rent fees that I'm charging? So, or that I just clarify that for me, please.
Thank you for the question, Assemblyman O'Neill, to you through Chair Marzola. Dallas Harris for the record.
And you can go straight, Senator.
Thank you so much. And it's good to see you as well. Absolutely not. There is nothing in this bill that dictates what the rent may be or not be, or what the rent can include, or how a landlord decides to calculate what that base rent will be.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Committee members, any additional questions? Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If a tenant decides to make the repairs themselves because the landlord's taking too long to make the repairs, would that tenant be reimbursed for those repairs?
Thank you for that question, Assemblywoman. Dallas Harris for the record. That is a trickier area of law that currently exists. That's a problem that landlords and tenants deal with every day and would not necessarily be created or remedied by this particular bill. And so whatever infrastructure is in place to establish reimbursement for any type of repairs that the landlord is responsible will remain in place.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to get that on the record. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Committee members, any additional questions? I have just a quick question, probably more clarification for me. So my plumbing goes out, my landlord calls the home warranty, we know there's a service fee, say $75. So what your bill does is, as long as I didn't create the issue, correct? The landlord now is responsible for that $75.
Thank you for the question, Chair. Dallas Harris for the record. Yes, that is correct. As the statute currently says today, whether this bill passes or not, the landlord is responsible to maintain that plumbing.
Great, thank you. One last chance. Any questions? We will go to support testimony.
Thank you so much, Chair. And if you don't mind, I would like to be excused. I have to present a bill in HHS at 12:30. Is that okay?
That's fine.
All right. Thank you all so much. Have a great day.
Thank you for being here with us. Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to testify in support to Senate Bill 381? Welcome. Please begin when you're ready.
Mark Ellis, President of CWA Local 9413. We are in support of the bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
For the record, my name is Susie Martinez, and I am the Executive Secretary Treasurer of the Nevada State AFL-CIO, and we are in full support of Senate Bill 381. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here in Carson City wishing to testify in support? I don't see anyone. Is there anyone in Las Vegas wishing to testify in support to Senate Bill 381? Broadcast, is there anyone on the line?
Callers, if you'd like to testify in support of Senate Bill 381, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Marzola and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Dion Klug, Dionne-Koug. I represent the United Food and Commercial Workers Union in Las Vegas, and we strongly urge you to support Senate Bill 381.
Thank you for your testimony. Broadcast, is there anyone else on the line?
Chair, there are no more callers in support at this time.
Thank you. We will move to testimony in opposition to Senate Bill 381. Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to testify in opposition? Is there anyone in Las Vegas wishing to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 381? Broadcast, is there anyone on the line?
Chair, there are no callers in opposition at this time.
Thank you. Lastly, we will go to neutral testimony. Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to testify in the neutral position? I don't see anyone. Is there anyone in Las Vegas wishing to testify in neutral? Broadcast, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in neutral?
Callers, if you'd like to testify in neutral for Senate Bill 381, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no callers wishing to testify in neutral at this time.
Thank you. I will now close the hearing on Senate Bill 381. I will now open the hearing on Senate Bill 147, which makes changes relating to employment. Senator Lang, you may begin when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chair Marzola, committee members. I am Roberta Lang, representing Senate District 7 in Clark County, and to my right is Randy Saltero. We want to thank you for the opportunity to present Senate Bill 147 in its first reprint, a bill requiring the payment of certain wages to an employee when an employee is placed on non-working status. The bill defines non-working status as a temporary layoff of an employee by an employer when the employee remains employed may be called back to work by an employer in a future date. The term does not include an employee who is an employer. And they could be laid off for the following reasons: placed on suspension pending investigation relating to employment, placed in suspension pursuant to disciplinary action regarding employment, places on call or available for work, or approves a leave of absence. As we all know, employees depend on their wages to meet their financial needs and responsibilities. When an employee is placed on non-working status, it often becomes a sudden change, leaving the individual with little or no time to prepare for financial consequences. According to the Mental Health America, 58% of those surveyed worrying about the ability to pay for day-to-day living experience, while 20% responded they are very concerned. Additionally, 25% of those with anxiety and depression said that financial problems were the main factor in contributing to their mental health problems. Unfortunately, many employees live by financial insecurity and live paycheck to cover their expenses, pay bills, and support their families. When an employee is terminated or placed on a non-working status, it can be a difficult and stressful time. Not receiving their final paycheck on time can exacerbate an already stressful situation, leaving the employee struggling to make ends meet. This is especially true for employees who may have been counting on that final paycheck to help them in transition to a new job or to cover their expenses until they find a new income. So this bill is something we've worked on since last session. We passed the bill last session to make this work and so that we get people their pay on time. The Labor Commissioner really wanted us to make it a little more in-depth so it'd have more teeth for her to be able to do the work she needed to do to go after the people that were bad players. And so that's what our attempt is to do. And I'll have Mr. Saltero take over and go through the bill with you.
Good afternoon. For the record, Randy Saltero, representing the International Alliance of Theatrical and Stage Employees here in Nevada. Madam Chair, members of the committee, I'll go through the sections of the bill. Section 1 is, as Senator Lang talked about, kind of defines what a non-working status is pursuant to NRS 608020. Section 2 then kind of goes through what happens when an employee is becoming on non-working status. This language used to say laid off, but we found, in working with stakeholders, this bill has kind of morphed into something that is now working for everyone, both folks that are workers and for employers that employ those workers. So I just want to make sure that this Section 2, everybody understands that this has been crafted by a lot of different folks. And I think you're going to hear from those folks today in support testimony. In Section 3, within 3 days after the wages of an employee placed on non-working status pursuant to NRS 608, that goes on to describe when those compensations are due. So simply this is to get people paid fairly, on time, and that's something that is more codified than in state law. Thank you, Chair.
Does that conclude your presentation?
It does, Madam Chair, and we are happy to answer any questions you may have.
Great, thank you, Senator. Committee members, are there any questions? We'll start with Assemblywoman Duran.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for your presentation, and I understand it is an issue, and I think there is quite confusion sometimes amongst people getting their paychecks. So I just noticed in here, when you do a layoff, are you giving them all their earned vacation and everything and their wages that they have? Or is that, because I know layoffs can be just for a month or two, or is that when they're coming back to work? Is that the intent of this, to give everything to them, or do they maintain their vacation?
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Would you like me to go direct, ma'am?
Please.
Assemblywoman, you are correct. There are times where people are laid off on a job. Maybe there's a show in town and your show is going for a certain amount of time, then you're going to experience a layoff and then you're going to go back on. At that time, people would have the option. They could claim all their wages and benefits at that time, or they could let it roll over until the next time they come back so they can maintain those benefits that they had built up prior.
And maybe I don't see that in there. It says that it doesn't have an option. It says they must pay them, or maybe I'm not seeing it. They're payable. Non-working status are due and payable immediately. Do you have a choice in there for them, or am I just not seeing that? Because I think if you put like an option for that, I don't know, or clarify that.
If you look in section, Roberta Lang for the record, if you look in section 3, number 2, when an employer lays off an employee and the employee is laid off or is on call, the wages earned and unpaid at that time of such a layoff become due and payable immediately. And when they lay off the employee, the unpaid time such as layoff shall become due and payable, and they have 3 days from the time of layoff to get that payment.
But I just thought you said that it was going to be an option if they wanted to use their vacation, or is this making the employee take everything at the time of layoff? Is I'm sorry about the misunderstanding.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry too. Roberta Lang for the record. If you go down to section 5 in C, they have the laid off employee has 3 days to submit a request, whether they want to have those wages paid or not. It's in the amendment. Do you have the amendment? Okay, the amendment passed out of the Senate, and we haven't amended it since we were in the Senate, so could possibly be on Nellis.
Assemblywoman Hardy.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm just going to relate this to kind of when we had our business, so I'm just understanding this. So in our situation, we didn't have like on-call employees and things like that. They were just, just workers. So in our case, I'm just trying to understand like the non-working status. So we would have, 10 employees on there, and it would depend on how busy we were or for a particular day or week or something like that. So is that kind of what you're saying with non-working? Like they're still on the payroll and there's, we could use them every day one week, but maybe none the next. So I'm just trying to kind of understand, they're still on the payroll, so they're not, I'm just trying to, in my mind, understand like a small employer, how this would apply instead of like, a bigger corporation who has more, it's more specified and has a HR department, et cetera.
Roberta Lang for the record. Assemblywoman, you're correct. This is meant to help small businesses that are in those ebb and flow times where sometimes they have a lot of jobs and other times they don't, so that they wouldn't have to lay off their employees. It would just be a slowdown in their work until the next job came. And it gives the option.
Assemblyman Carter.
Good afternoon, and thank you. My question's got to do with collective bargaining. Does this statute supersede conditions in a collective bargaining agreement or vice versa? Which one takes primacy?
For the record, Randy Saltero, if I may go directly to the Assemblyman. Assemblyman Carter, this does not supersede any collective bargaining agreement. The reason why we did this bill is because I can tell you that not every collective bargaining agreement has a remedy, and so this remedy could be applied if there wasn't one already in a collective bargaining agreement. So it does not supersede it, but it is available to employees who are not subject to a collective bargaining agreement or don't have remedy language in their collective bargaining agreements.
Assemblywoman Backus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to follow up on my colleague's question regarding the option, because when I look at this in Section 3, which you guys walked us through, that obviously when an employee is on, like, they get goes on non-working status. I wanted to use your statutory form. Non-working status, then the employer has to remit them their wages. They become due within it says if an employer fails to pay within 3 days after the wages of an employee placed on non-working status pursuant to the statute become due. There's penalties under obviously 3, but then when you look at Section 2, it seems to us, and this is what I think we were trying to confirm, that there's only one option here, that when the person goes on non-working status, these benefits that would normally become due at termination would also become due and payable to the employee that goes on non-working status, and it doesn't leave that other option that you were explaining. Or we may be missing it, but the draft we have does not have 5 sections. It only has 4 sections. And it may have been the amendment that may have gotten submitted.
Yeah, the intent, I'm sorry, for the record, Randy Saltero, the intent of this bill is to, and I think that, again, you'll hear about this in support testimony. The intent of this bill is to have those employees and the employer having the ability to lay off somebody or they become on non-working status. The example was, what's happening was in the entertainment industry is where there might be a run of show and that show might go dark for a couple of weeks. And so you don't want to have to pay out their benefits because then they don't have medical or their compensation would be stopped as far as with their pension or something else. So that's why, and in the hospitality industry, that's where you're going to hear from. The hospitality industry sees that as, well, we have people that come and are on layoff status and with the seasons and everything else, those persons, they will be coming, but they don't want to, the employee doesn't want to lose those benefits or those things that they've accrued or those, and have to start all over again with seniority. They want to be able to remain their seniority. So they go on non-working status, and this bill would allow that to happen.
I'm going to have legal chime in really quickly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sam Kwas, Committee Counsel. So Section 2 does not give an option. It's mandatory that the wages earned and unpaid at the time the employee is placed on non-working status are due and payable immediately. And then Section 3 operates as a penalty for if they do not do so, then those wages keep running until paid or until 30 days. So, however, I will say that subsection 2 of Section 2 applies only to the wages earned, which is defined in NRS 608-012 and Section 1 of the bill. And I don't believe that that would include a person's benefits, but it's their wages that are due.
We agree. For the record, Randy Saltero, and we agree with that. As you see in Section 1, it does address both wages and compensation. And in those sections, it's the compensation is not included in that 3-day thing if an employee becomes then on non-working status.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Assemblywoman? Perfect. Thank you. Any additional questions, committee members? Assemblyman O'Neill.
Thank you, Chair. Just for clarification purposes, temporary layoff, how long is that? And let me give you an example, maybe to explain better my question. I've got a small business or business, NV Energy, someone's working out in the road and cuts the power lines, or in my business of 10 employees, the hot water tank explodes, floods the place, and for the next day or 2, 3 days, I'll be with either out power or I've got to get the place mopped up, et cetera. So my employees now go to unpaid. I'm curious, what's the time limit in temporary layoff? What's that definition?
Madam Chair, if you're okay, I can handle that question. Okay. Ms. T. Grimmer, for the record, representing the Nevada Resort Association. We did work a great deal with the senator on the Senate side to really clarify this language. And I think we will probably visit it some more because I noticed the same thing that the work section document that we had in the Senate is not necessarily what came out in this bill. So, but to answer your question, Assemblyman O'Neill, we were the ones that really worked a lot with the senator about the concept of a temporary layoff because in the gaming resort industry, we have a great deal of fluctuation in our employees, and it's all based on whatever is driving the market today. So Wednesday may be really busy, and then Thursday is not, and then the weekend explodes or something along those lines. So we have a lot of employees that will be put in essentially a temporary layoff, and we all, when we were working on it, we did go back and forth and trying to figure out, is there a time frame? Is there some sort of predictability? But unfortunately, in our business, there isn't really any predictability. So that's why we left it a little bit open-ended like that. But we do have a lot of employees that we will call, and they'll come and they'll work for 3 days, and then they'll not work for the next 2 days, or they'll come and, and a lot of them really actually like that scenario because they can be in that status with actually multiple properties if they want to be. And it gives them a lot of the flexibility to create their own work schedules as well. So, so that's why we were the ones who brought this concern to the senator, and she's been amazing, and Randy's been amazing to work with us on this in figuring out the language that achieves their goal, but also provides us the flexibility that we need for our employees. And I think we will visit some more that issue of compensation, because that is a case, especially for a lot of our employees who have seniority and they've accrued vacation time and things like that. So that's why we did sort of, in the original bill, we did sort of bifurcate the two things so that the person could be paid their wages immediately, the money that's owed to them, but they may still be able to maintain their seniority, their vacation time, things along those lines, so that that isn't necessarily lost every time they're laid off. I hope that helps.
Just, if I may, but I'm talking about an unforeseen circumstance. Like I said, I've got 10 employees. My business is making those world-famous widgets, as we may remember from our business classes. NV Energy, or somebody cuts the power line, or as I said, my water tank explodes. So I've got to go temporary, I've got to close down for a few days to restore power, mop the place up. I'm asking, what is the definition of temporary? It's an unforeseen incident. Do I have to immediately pay those employees, or what's my resolution here? Where am I?
Madam Chair, Misty Grimmer for the record. I think that's where the 3 days comes in. Even in an unforeseen circumstance, I think that the goal here is that if a person is laid off, they are due their wages at least within those 3 days. So, I mean, even if it is unforeseen, the person still needs their income.
They're only laid off, I'm only closed for 24 hours. You're saying I have to pay them within 3 days. It's due immediately, and I must do it within 3 days. But I'm saying they're only laid off. Am I misreading this then, that they have to be laid off or go in an unworking status for more than 3 days or more before their wages are due?
No, I think Misty Grimmer for the record. I think the intention of this statute is that the wages are due immediately, and so but then they have to be paid within the 3 days. If it goes beyond the 3 days, then I think the employer would run into some challenges.
Senator Lang for the record. Assemblyman O'Neill, I think if you had an instance like the one that you're describing, one day where you couldn't work because of unforeseen circumstances, isn't a layoff. That is just a work stoppage for that moment in time while you can get back up and going. It's not really a layoff. A layoff would be more if the job finished, and as the Assemblywoman explained, if the job finished and you had to wait till the next job was available.
That's what I was asking. Thank you for that, Senator Lang. I appreciate that, because I just am curious about that definition of temporary layoff. 1 day, 2 days, 2 years. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Any additional questions, committee members? Assemblywoman Hardy.
Thank you, Chair. So this just came to mind, discussing immediately or within 3 days. So like in our case, like we paid every 2 weeks. through a payroll company. So then, would we have to then, have a check issued, just one check for that individual? Or could it be, or am I missing that somewhere in there, that it couldn't be within like the next pay period?
So I think, Senator Lang, for the record, sorry, I'm reminding people this all the time. Assemblywoman, I think if someone was laid off from their job and it was a layoff or a work slowdown because the job ended, then you would need to pay them their wages, and they have a time to request that. If they want to be paid, some people it will be fine not to pay, but you may have to issue one check. And then penalties, if you don't within the 3 days, then the penalties start to accrue.
Committee members, any additional questions? Assemblywoman Kasama.
I just wanted to clarify, because I hear the different things, but the way I look at this, and I just like input on this too, that currently in statute, if we discharge somebody, we have to pay them immediately. The check is due. And then the Section 3, which has also been in statute already, just says you're supposed to pay them immediately, but if you don't within 3 days, this is the consequence. So it's almost like there's a 3-day grace period that's already been in statute. Is that correct?
For the record, Randy Saltero, if you look at Section 3, and you're correct, Assemblywoman, it is already in statute, and it's important to look at, number one, if an employer fails to pay. So if they don't pay on their regular payday or whatever, then that's what triggers that 3 days. If within 3 days of wages or compensation, a discharged employee becomes due, that's already in statute. And then B, within 3 days after the wages of an employee placed on non-working status. So if you are non-working status, then the compensation portion, which would be the benefits and medical care or whatever it else, is not, because that person's on non-working status now, those wouldn't be due, but the wages would be. So it's important to look at the first part that is already in 608-040, number one, if an employer fails to pay, then these things are triggered.
Committee members, any additional questions? I don't see any. We will move to support testimony of Senate Bill 147. Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to testify in support? Maybe go when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's when I was going to come up, but so Misty Grimmer for the Nevada Resort Association, and we are in support of this bill. And the question from Assemblywoman Kasama is helpful because to help putting the bill into context is important, because that has already been in the law from last session, that when a person is terminated or permanently leaves the job, the 3 days was already in the statute. And I think the goal with this is that a similar sort of situation would apply when a person is laid off. I hope that helps a little bit. Thank you, committee.
Thank you, Chair. For the record, my name is Susie Martinez, and I am the Executive Secretary Treasurer of the Nevada State AFL-CIO. And on behalf of over 150,000 members and 120 unions, we are in full support of Senate Bill 147. Thank you.
For the record, my name is Mark Ellis. I'm with Communication Workers of America, and for the record, we support this bill.
Greg Esposito, representing the Nevada State Pipe Trades. I've been on both sides of this, where I've worked with good contractors who have come to you and said, "Hey, we have a bit of a slowdown. Do you want to take a week off? I'm not going to lay you off, but do you want to take a week off as a furlough?" And you were happy for it because you don't usually get time off on construction projects. And I've also been cheated by contractors where they have strung me along saying, "Oh, there'll be work tomorrow, there'll be work tomorrow," and they were just waiting to not have to pay me right away. And it's a burden. It's a hardship. Hourly wage earners are not banking a whole bunch of money, living quite check to check, as a matter of fact. And so we fully support this bill because it's going to help workers defend their rights. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee. My name is Fran Alvarez, and I am here today representing Teamsters Local 631. In the Teamsters Local 631, there are over 3,000 members who work the conventions in Las Vegas. In that industry, they are called for a particular show. They may work 7, 8, 10 days setting up that show. Then they are left on call while that show is open, and they come back to work to tear it down. During that time period, they are not laid off. They are on call. So if they are on call for a week or more, they need to get paid for the work they've already done. In that industry, payday is Friday. So if they work Tuesday through Friday and they don't come back until maybe the next Friday, they need to get paid for that previous time that they worked, even though they are not laid off. Workers being paid on time is a necessity. They need to pay their rent. They need to buy groceries. And it is important, for Nevadans to get paid on time for work they have done, even though they're not laid off. I don't know if that makes sense. I'm trying to explain how that industry works. And I ask that you support SB 147. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else here in Carson City wishing to testify in support? I don't see anyone. Is there anyone in Las Vegas wishing to testify in support to Senate Bill 147? Broadcast, is there anyone on the lines?
If you'd like to testify in support of Senate Bill 147, please press star 9 or raise your hand in the Zoom window to take your place in the queue.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Marzola and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Robert Sumlin, Robert Sumlin, and I'm with the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local Lodge SC 711 in Las Vegas, Nevada. I strongly urge the committee to support Senate Bill 147. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Marzola and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Michael McGovern. That's McGovern. I strongly support the committee. I urge the committee to support Senate Bill 147. This legislation is very important because it'll ensure that workers receive the wages and compensation that they've earned in a timely fashion. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Marzola and members of the committee. My name is Dion Klug, Dionne-Kloug, and I represent the United Food and Commercial Workers Union, Local 711 in Las Vegas, and we strongly urge the committee to support Senate Bill 147. Thank you.
Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Adam Mack, last name M-A-C-K. I'm the Legislative Director of the International Association of Theatrical Stage Employees, Local 363 in Northern Nevada. We stand in support of this bill. Thank you.
Chair, there are no more callers in support at this time.
Thank you. We will now move on to testimony in opposition. Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 147? I don't see anyone. Is there anyone in Las Vegas wishing to testify in opposition? Broadcast, is there anyone on the line?
Chair, there are no callers in opposition at this time.
Thank you. Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to testify in neutral to Senate Bill 147? I don't see anyone. I do see someone in Las Vegas. If you wish to testify in neutral, please remember to state and spell your name for the record. You may begin when you're ready.
Good morning, Brett Harris, Nevada Labor Commissioner. For the record, we perform enforcement on this statute, so I just wanted to be present to answer any questions.
None of us have any questions, but we appreciate you being here. Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room with you?
Yes, there is.
Okay. Is there anyone wishing to testify in neutral position in Las Vegas to Senate Bill 147?
And Chair, just for the record, Brett Harris, Nevada Labor Commissioner, she's not here on this bill.
Great, thank you. Broadcast, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in neutral?
Chair, we have no callers in neutral at this time.
Thank you. Senator, would you like to give closing remarks?
For the record, Randy Soltero, Chair, members of the committee, as you probably, most of you have seen me come and talk to you about this bill prior. I will be setting appointments for you. I was not able to get to a couple of you folks because I know your schedules are so busy, but I will be following up in case there's any questions on this in the next few days next week. So look forward to answering any questions that you may have, and thank you for the opportunity to present this bill.
Thank you for being here today. I will now close the hearing on Senate Bill 147. I will now open the hearing on Senate Bill 330, which revises provisions related to health care. Welcome back, Senator Lang.
Once again, thank you so much for having me here today, Chair Marzola and members of the committee. I'm Roberta Lang, representing Senate District 7 in Clark County. Thank you for allowing me to present Senate Bill 330 in its first reprint, which aims to enhance our healthcare system's coverage of essential breast cancer screening and diagnostic testing. This bill builds upon past efforts and expands coverage in a way that will positively impact countless lives. Breast cancer is a significant health issue affecting millions of people globally. Early detection of breast cancer is crucial in improving treatment outcomes and reducing mortality rates. As part of our ongoing efforts to combat this devastating disease, our existing statutes mandate that most health insurance plans cover mammograms, a vital tool in early detection of breast cancer. According to the Health Resources and Services Administration, the United States Department of Health and Human Services, screening should occur at least every 2 years and as frequently as every year. Women with an increased risk for breast cancer should undergo periodic screening. Through HRSA's recommendations and the Affordable Care Act requires health plans to cover mammogram screenings at least every 2 years and as frequently as once a year for women between 40 and 74 years of age. Under the ACA, insurers must cover screenings with no cost sharing to patients. We'd like to go through the bill, and I'll introduce my co-presenters, Dr. Harrigal, who is a radiologist, and Carrie Harrington from the Nevada Cancer Coalition. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chair Marzola and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Carrie Harrington. I am the Executive Director with Nevada Cancer Coalition. We're your state's nonprofit that brings together public and private health, Susan G. Komen, American Cancer Society, and other stakeholders to work on reducing the burden of cancer in our state. The intent of Senate Bill 330 is to find breast cancer earlier when it's easier to treat and ultimately to save lives. This bill would eliminate out-of-pocket costs for medically necessary screening and diagnostic breast imaging, providing equitable access to care. In Section 1 of the bill, there you see subsection 1.A provides the annual mammograms for all insured patients over 40. Subsection 1B provides an imaging test to screen for breast cancer when medically necessary for people who have been deemed to be at high risk for breast cancer. They might have dense breast tissue, family history, BRCA gene mutations. Patients at high risk, such imaging tests may include breast magnetic resonance imaging and MRI, breast ultrasound, or other clinically indicated testing. Subsection 1C provides a diagnostic imaging test when medically necessary to rule out breast cancer or confirm the need for a biopsy. These diagnostic tests are conducted for people with symptoms of disease, or they might have abnormal results from a mammogram or imaging test. Diagnostic exams, again, include breast MRI, ultrasound, or other clinically indicated testing. Annual mammograms, imaging tests, and these diagnostic tests are to be provided without any deductible, copayment, coinsurance, or any other form of cost sharing for a patient. Sections 2 through 7 provide the same changes to different NRS chapters to include all Nevada regulated private insurance. This bill does not impact federally regulated insurance, including ERISA plans. Section 7.1 and 7.2 exempts PEB and local government public employee plans from this additional coverage requirements while maintaining the current requirements for your mammograms. While we encourage PEB and local public employee plans to cover breast cancer screening and imaging at no cost to the patient, we wanted to be mindful of the impacts on governmental budgets. It's extremely important to know that Nevada Medicaid, as well as Medicare, provide these tests at no cost to patients. Therefore, what we're asking with SB 330 is to provide parity for our insured patients. Just as of Wednesday, 11 states have already passed this legislation, including Arkansas, Colorado, Georgia, Illinois, Louisiana, Montana, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Texas, New York, and Vermont. Another 3 states are currently awaiting governor's signatures. That's Maryland, Tennessee, and Washington. And as we speak today, 12 states, including us, are running similar bills. Breast cancer is expensive. The National Cancer Institute reports that national expenditures associated with cancer have continued to increase in the United States, which is no surprise. Breast cancer, however, remains the costliest of cancers. It's costing our United States almost $30 billion, and that's a statistic from 2020, so I'm sure it's even more today. Breast cancer has the highest treatment costs of any other cancer and the highest out-of-pocket costs for patients. And this cost increases at each stage of diagnosis someone is diagnosed at. Research shows that the cost to treat a stage 4 case of breast cancer can be 60 to 90% higher than treating a stage 1 or 2 case of breast cancer. As Senator Lang shared, thanks to the Affordable Care Act, widespread access to preventative screening mammography, that is available to millions of people at no cost. However, if you're a patient at high risk for breast cancer, or if the results of your mammogram are in question, additional testing is needed to rule out breast cancer or confirm that you need a biopsy. So thanks to advances in healthcare today, we know we've got the technology to detect breast cancer earlier for these people. Unfortunately, this technology is not easily accessible to everyone, and these additional tests can cost patients hundreds to thousands of dollars in out-of-pocket costs, all before they're ever even diagnosed for breast cancer and now have to incur many more thousands of dollars for treatment. Patients who are incurring these high expenses before even starting treatment run a much higher risk of financial hardship, and a lot of these patients put off treatment and care altogether. Here's what we do know. According to the CDC, increased access to breast cancer screening and diagnostic imaging would, number 1, reduce deaths. Compared to not screening at all, screening reduces breast cancer deaths by 26%, or 7 deaths averted for every 1,000 people that we screen. We know it decreases the number of people diagnosed with late-stage cancer. Screenings contributed to a 29% reduction in the number of people that are diagnosed with cancer that has already spread to other parts of their body. And thirdly, it detects cancer sooner when we know it's easier to treat. Almost 98% of people who are diagnosed with breast cancer in the earliest stages live for at least 5 years or more, compared to only about 31% of those that are diagnosed at a later stage. Really, it was truly our healthcare partners across the state, including Dr. Harrigal. They were seeing far too many late-stage breast cancer cases in Nevada, patients whose outcomes could have been vastly different, lives that could have been saved, would we have caught their cancer earlier. The culmination of this bill is really thanks to the collaboration of these physicians and organizations across Nevada working together. We've been working on this for 3 to 4 years. We really want to change this story for Nevadans, and truly, and number one is we want to save lives. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Marzola and members of the committee. My name is Siobhan Harrigal. I work at Cancer Care Specialists in Reno, Nevada. I am a radiologist who specializes in breast cancer. My job is to read mammograms and to catch breast cancer. I have lived and worked right here in Nevada for more than 10 years. When I first started working in Nevada, I was shocked at how many of my patients presented with late-stage breast cancer, including stage 4 breast cancer. Many of these women hadn't had a mammogram in many years. Some of these women had breast cancers the size of a baseball, which would have been easily caught on a mammogram. Besides skin cancer, breast cancer is the #1 cancer diagnosed in Nevada. According to the American Cancer Society, more than 2,620 of our friends, family members, neighbors, and colleagues will be diagnosed with breast cancer by the end of 2023, and 440 Nevadans will die of breast cancer this year. This includes men as well as women. Further, breast cancer does not affect all racial and ethnic groups equally. While white women are more likely to be diagnosed with breast cancer, Black women are more likely to die of breast cancer than any other group in Nevada. 32.8 deaths per 100,000 versus 23.7 deaths per 100,000 for white women. This is a health disparity that cannot be ignored. Black women are more likely to be diagnosed with triple-negative breast cancer and inflammatory breast cancer, both of which are more often detected with additional tests like breast ultrasound and/or breast MRI, as these cancers don't show up well on standard mammography. As I learned about the low rates of mammograms and the high death rates from breast cancer in Nevada, I wanted to understand the barriers to access. Over and over, I would meet women who couldn't afford to get a diagnostic mammogram or supplemental imaging. These included many working women who thought that they had good health insurance and were shocked to find out that their insurance didn't cover tests necessary to catch breast cancer. I met women who delayed getting breast care because they had to choose between paying for their rent and paying for a diagnostic mammogram or ultrasound. The lack of insurance coverage and high co-pays and out-of-pocket expenses delays care and treatment for many women in our community. I have met countless women who were told that they had a higher risk of breast cancer due to a family history or dense breast tissue, but their insurance companies wouldn't cover these additional tests like breast MRI, 3D mammogram, and ultrasound, which have been proven to catch more breast cancers in these women. To give you some background on these tests, a mammogram is a safe, low-dose X-ray picture of the breasts. A screening mammogram is a test done on women who don't have symptoms, like a breast lump. A diagnostic mammogram is a test that is done to address a clinical symptom, like a breast lump or breast pain, or an abnormal result from a screening mammogram. A 3D mammogram, also known as tomosynthesis, is a more advanced type of mammogram that has been shown to catch more breast cancers and result in fewer false alarms than a standard mammogram. 3D mammograms help find more breast cancers in women who have dense breast tissue. Dense breast tissue is associated with a higher chance of developing breast cancer and a higher rate of cancers being hidden and missed on a standard 2D mammogram. Breast MRI is a tool without x-rays or radiation, which has the highest cancer detection rate. It is often used to find breast cancers in women who have a greater than 20% lifetime risk of developing breast cancer, including women who have a known genetic mutation like the BRCA genetic mutation, and women who have a strong family history of breast cancer. Breast ultrasound is an imaging test that has been shown to catch more breast cancers in women with dense breast tissue and in women who have a higher risk of developing breast cancer. It is also done to better evaluate abnormalities seen on mammograms, and it's used to evaluate breast lumps and breast pain. I'm going to share with you one thing that I have learned in the past 10 years of working here in Nevada. People want their cancers found as early as possible. I have had the unpleasant job of telling hundreds of people in our community that they have breast cancer. No one wants their cancer found when it is too advanced and too late to cure. Earlier detection of breast cancer is the key to saving lives from breast cancer. The bigger a cancer is at the time of diagnosis, the more likely a patient will die from their cancer. Patients with stage 4 breast cancer will die sooner from their disease than patients with stage 1 breast cancer. They will also have to endure expensive treatments, which can cost the patient and their family tens of thousands of dollars a year. Thankfully, there is hope. Right now, we are living in an exciting time in medicine. Every day, there are breakthroughs being made in the fight against cancer. Today, we have many tools in our arsenal to catch breast cancer sooner when it is smaller and more treatable. We have tools that can detect breast cancers when they're the size of a BB rather than the size of a baseball. But sadly, in Nevada, many of these tests are not covered by insurance companies. The out-of-pocket costs for these tests range from $200 to a few $1,000s. You have the ability to save many lives from breast cancer by passing SB 330. You would also be helping thousands of families in Nevada by reducing the financial burden that comes with necessary breast cancer screening and diagnostic imaging. Thank you for your time and for your leadership in our community.
And with that, Chair, we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation and for bringing this very important bill forward. Committee members, are there any questions? Assemblywoman Backus.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. And mine may go to the doctor, because when I first looked at this, I kind of thought it was just a mammogram bill, and just kind of my mindset got that way. And so I'm so grateful that you went into the different type of imaging, especially like 3D imaging, because I know like some of our providers down south, they only offer 3D imaging, which I think is amazing, especially for someone like me. And so when I was looking at this, it didn't dawn on me until I'm sitting here, and I just want to confirm that. In all of the sections, it starts off like with a mammogram to screen every year after the insured turns 40 years of age or older. But then subparts B and C usually follow throughout with, it references an imaging test to screen, or it also references a diagnostic imaging test. So with this additional language in here, is it the intent that that insurers are to cover these other tests like 3D imaging, and then you said some other couple fancy other tests? Is that what your intent is?
For the record, Dr. Harrigal, yes, absolutely. There are 4 basic different kinds of tests in addition to the mammogram, the 3D mammogram, the ultrasound, and the MRI. And this is inclusive of these additional tests, which are all used to characterize abnormalities and any possible future tests that will be shown to save lives from breast cancer. And I believe Carrie might have additional details on the language. Okay, it's inclusive of all of those tests.
Assemblyman Yurick.
Thank you, Chair. And I really like the idea of making sure that we have insurance companies providing these tests. And with my wife's permission, I will tell you she is a breast cancer survivor. And early detection for her was key. In fact, I remember that when she went for her annual physical, they didn't want to do it because they thought, well, you had one last year. She insisted, and thank God she did, because she wouldn't be here with us today if she didn't get that test. So the testing is really important. So my concern is not on that part of the policy, but what I'm wondering is, we've excluded our public employees from this, and I understand that that's because of costs that would be associated that we are apparently willing to push on to the private insurance companies, but we're not willing to do that, and are we potentially... I mean, our state employees are so important to us. I'm just wondering if you could maybe address the decision to go that route, other than just financially, it's just going to cost us too much to take care of them.
Thank you, Assemblyman, for the question. With meeting with our stakeholders, that is something that they really wanted in the bill, to be able to support it. It was to be excluded, and it was not, if we had our choice, we would have had everyone in it, because we think if it's important to one Nevada, it's important to two Nevadans, it's important to all Nevadans.
I really appreciate that. As a former public employee, I love those people, and I do think that this sort of protection for them would be important as well. And I would highlight that is I had some folks come in and talk to me about this bill. They actually, one of my concerns is I'll confess I'm kind of a free market guy, and it seems like if the idea, because this is a significant policy shift, right? We're going from the deterring effect of not charging a higher deductible or copay to just not charging one at all. And so I was asking the folks that were coming in and talking to me about that, like, are we now interfering with private business that otherwise, I was told that no, that actually it's a cost-saving measure in the long run. And if it is a cost-saving measure, it seemed like those cost savings would be equally available to us as a state. And so I would just like to consider getting these benefits out there. If we're going to do it for one group, I do think it is very important that we provide this. Again, very personal story, very important benefit. Thank you.
Yeah, and if I could add on to that, Roberta Lang for the record. I had a bill last year about cancer and step therapy, and when I met with all the stakeholders, they told me how expensive and how much it was going to cost all the stakeholders to do it. And I said, well, it's the right thing. I think you should do it. 2 years later, I've asked for actuarials, which I haven't received, but I've received words where it hasn't cost us anything more. And so sometimes I think insurance companies think that something's going to cost them more, when actually if you do the early detection, you save so much more money than if you're waiting to the stage 4 cancers and they're paying $1,000 a pill for a medicine in a stage 4 cancer. If you can catch it early and treat it early, you save so much more money.
Committee members, any additional questions? Assemblywoman Hardy.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for bringing this bill. I remember your previous bill, and I agree with you. The earlier we can treat these things, we're saving money, because the longer it goes, now the treatment and everything is going to be more expensive. Plus, you may not be able to save someone the longer that it goes. So just kind of following up on that, I want to make sure I'm understanding. In section 7.25, so now we're talking about self-insured plans, self-insurance plans through a county, school district, et cetera. In section 5 there, it says they may use medical management techniques to determine the frequency of or treatment relating to any benefit required. So I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So could these plan providers deny these mammograms and other imaging, et cetera, and use these medical management techniques instead of allowing these tests? I just want to make sure that that's, like they could say, well, no, let's try this first instead of allowing these other diagnostic tests.
For the record, Carrie Harrington, that is their quality assurance component that is in most NRS. I don't have the exact answer for that. Mammograms, because they are ACA required. Oh, fantastic.
We called a friend.
Hold on one moment.
I am said friend. For the record, my name is Paige Barnes with the Ferrado Company here today on behalf of the Nevada Cancer Coalition. Yes, you are right. What we did in section 7.2 and 7.3 was essentially moved current statute, which was in 689, over to those statutes because we wanted to maintain the status quo for both PEB plans and also those local government public employee plans. So yes, that is currently what they're allowed to do, is what is in the language that's been copy and pasted there.
Committee members, any additional questions? I don't see any, so we will move to support testimony. Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to testify in support of Senate Bill 330? Please remember to state and spell your name for the record, and you may begin when you're ready.
Good afternoon. Thank you. My name is Darcy Phillips. 7 years ago, at 46 years old, I found a lump in my breast only 3 months after my yearly mammogram. It was 9 more months before I was diagnosed with breast cancer and treated. I have to wonder if better diagnostics at my yearly appointment would have caught it at stage 1 instead of stage 2, when the treatment and surgery would have been less invasive. Instead, I was left with lifelong chronic pain and unexpected complications from the surgery that had to be more extensive because it was stage 2. Because I have dense breast tissue and was diagnosed years before menopause, I have increased risk for the cancer to return. I need yearly additional screenings beyond a mammogram, and for an MRI, my private insurance copay is $1,000 a year. Many women are foregoing these life-saving tests due to the burden of the costs associated with them. To insurance companies, I would say pay now or pay dearly later, as my insurance company did and continues to do. Please support this bill and save both patients' quality of life and many lives as well. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony and for sharing today.
Good afternoon. My name is Amy Thompson, Thompson. With over 10 years experience as an oncology certified nurse and certified breast cancer nurse navigator, I strongly support this bill, which would eliminate out-of-pocket costs for medically necessary screening and diagnostic breast imaging. I have witnessed countless women experience access barriers to breast cancer screenings and their recommended diagnostic imaging, including for those needing breast MRIs for high risk, based on out-of-pocket costs that can be hundreds to thousands of dollars, as we've talked about. Delaying necessary supplemental screening and diagnostic imaging means delaying the identification of breast cancer that, when caught early, has the best outcomes for survival. Delaying early detection is never in the best interest of a patient's survival, and one should never have to decide to put off breast imaging based on the cost of their tests. If our system is not set up to facilitate early detection by eliminating out-of-pocket costs for these necessary screening and diagnostic breast imaging tests, we can expect continued disparities in access, an increase in late-stage diagnosis, and a higher risk of financial toxicity for those diagnosed that will likely result in even further delayed treatment based on ongoing financial hardship. As Nevadans, I believe we can and should do better. By eliminating the out-of-pocket expenses, we can allow all people equal access to needed screening and diagnostic imaging, which can reduce deaths and reduce costs to Nevada's healthcare system through a proactive approach. I respectfully ask of the committee's support of Senate Bill 330 so that those we love can have equal access to life-saving imaging for early detection of breast cancer. Thank you so much for your attention and consideration of this critical topic.
Thank you. And once you're done with your testimony, can you give others a chance to sit and testify? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Kelly Miner. I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to tell you about my story in consideration of support for Senate Bill 330. I come to you as a breast cancer survivor, but actually I prefer to be called a thriver or warrior, because you don't just survive this terrible disease, you have to fight it, and sometimes you have to fight the insurance system to continue to live a life after diagnosis with this terrible disease. I might not be here today if I did not get my early diagnosis. See, I have dense breast tissue, and it's harder to diagnose that. In September 2019, they found something abnormal in my 3D mammogram, and they asked me to come back for another mammogram and an ultrasound in a couple of weeks. During the ultrasound, the doctor told me it was 90% sure I had cancer. This is never easy to hear, and I wasn't prepared for this diagnosis. However, I can consider myself one of the lucky ones. I'm sure most people would consider themselves not lucky, but receiving this diagnosis, but my cancer was early in stage 1. It was only discovered because I had a 3D mammogram. They said they wouldn't have been able to see it with a regular mammogram. Once I received the results of my ultrasound, I was able to get a biopsy within a week, and it was surgically removed within 3 weeks. I believe my survival rate was due to the swiftness of the medical attention I received. We all know what happened in 2020 when they shut everything down and all non-essential medical procedures had to wait. And if I had to wait for that and wait for any of that, if I had to wait to afford the co-pays or insurance approval, it might be a different story and I might not be here today. I might have got to go through more painful, extreme, and expensive procedures. It might have spread throughout my body. I was able to receive this expedient medical services because I had good insurance at the time. But not everyone is as lucky as I was to have medical coverage of these procedures. When you receive this information from your doctor, it can be crippling and emotionally and mentally hard. Thoughts will I survive this? Will I have to go through debilitating chemo and radiation therapies? Will I lose my hair? All these thoughts can be devastating, and the last thing you want to have to do is worry about how you're going to pay for this life-saving procedures and expensive copays. I can't even imagine having to make the decision between buying groceries or paying for my medical bills while worrying whether I will live or die from this disease. I've been on a schedule of mammograms and ultrasounds every 6 months for the last few years. I had another scare last year when I developed some lumps again. I needed to go in for a mammogram and ultrasound to make sure it was not a reoccurrence. Unfortunately, I had just changed jobs and had to wait 3 months for my insurance to kick in. I had many sleepless nights worrying before I was able to get into the further procedures. I was stressed and I may have waited too long that it might have spread throughout my body and that I wouldn't be able to recover from it. Again, I'm a lucky one. And once the insurance kicked in, I was able to have these procedures and learned they were benign. Every time I walk into these procedures, I'm anxious and nervous that the doctor will make that life-changing statement again. It's projected almost 300,000 women will be given this gut-wrenching diagnosis this year in this country. Some will lose their lives because they will receive this information too late because they pushed off getting these preventative screenings because they could not afford them. These procedures are essential for women's survival rate to get these in a timely manner. No one should go bankrupt or have to worry about having to pay exuberant medical bills. No one should ever have to choose between their living expenses and life-saving procedures. I would like to implore you to pass Senate Bill 330 so women can receive the imperative health care they need to be diagnosed in a timely manner without having to worry about medical bills hanging over their heads or just putting off this important procedures that can diagnose this terrible disease early so that lives can be saved. I'm extremely thankful I have been cancer-free for over 3 years now due to my amazing team of doctors and ability to afford my procedures. But this will be a lifelong journey. I thank you for listening to me and looking to pass this law to save many more lives of mothers, sisters, grandmothers, daughters, nieces, and aunts out there that may not be as fortunate to have insurance or the financial means to afford to pay for these procedures. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your story today. I know it's tough. Thank you. And yes, you're definitely a warrior.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and excuse me. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee for the opportunity to testify this afternoon. For the record, my name is Connor Sweeney. I'm a state policy and advocacy manager with Susan G. Komen Foundation. I'll keep my comments brief since my colleagues over there did a really great job of covering all the bases. Carrie was mentioning all the other states that are considering this legislation currently, and I just checked my phone a few minutes ago and pleased to report that the governor of Maryland just signed a similar bill into law just yesterday. So we hope that Nevada will be next, as Susan G. Komen is a proud supporter of SB 330. And we know that screening mammograms are often just the first step in the process of diagnosing breast cancer. Early detection would really not be possible without medically necessary diagnostic imaging and supplemental follow-ups, which are needed to either rule out breast cancer or confirm the need for a biopsy. Komen provides direct financial assistance to qualifying patients in the U.S., and we often hear from individuals who tell us that they're unable to afford the out-of-pocket cost just for their recommended breast imaging. And those patients who are delaying or foregoing those imaging sessions run the risk of seeing their cancer spread to other parts of the body, where it becomes more difficult and far more expensive to treat. So given how common breast cancer is, it only makes sense to ensure that all patients have equitable access to the entire screening continuum, not just the first step in the process. And while it's true that widespread access to mammograms has led to significant increases in early detection over the past 30 years, the same is actually not true across all demographics. Evidence shows that commercially insured Black breast cancer patients are still diagnosed at a later stage and have a higher mortality rate when compared to their white counterparts with the same insurance status. So we believe that that may be due to additional delays in medically necessary follow-ups. So eliminating out-of-pocket costs for these services would eliminate that disparity and others, increase early detection, and save lives. So we strongly urge your support of this legislation. Thank you again for the opportunity to comment.
My name is George Ross. I'm speaking on behalf of HCA Healthcare, the parent company of Sunrise Hospital, Southern Hills Hospital, and Mountain View Hospital. HCA strongly supports SB 330. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Sarah Watkins. I represent the Nevada State Medical Association, and as a patient and physician advocacy organization, we're in full support of SB 330. Thank you.
Is there anyone else in support of Senate Bill 330 here in Carson City? Is there anyone in Las Vegas in support? Are you?
Yes, Chairwoman.
Perfect. Please state and spell your name for the record. You may begin when you're ready.
Okay. For the record, my name is Rhonda Johnson, Johnson, manager of the Nevada Health Center's Mammovan. Good afternoon, Chair Marzella and members of the committee. In 2000, Senator John Ensign and former First Lady of Nevada, Dee McGuinn, recognized access and financial barriers for women needing breast cancer screenings. Understanding early detection is the only defense to breast cancer. They quickly jumped into action, and born was the Mammovan. We are a mobile mammography unit that circulates the state of Nevada, providing breast cancer screenings to all women ages 40 and older, regardless of their ability to pay, and to provide access to imaging for women in underserved communities or rural areas. After 23 years, the Mammovan continues to break those barriers. When we look at barriers to breast cancer screening in Nevada, access to facilities and cost of services are among the top reasons why women choose not to screen. In 2010, the Affordable Care Act was the catalyst to cutting out-of-pocket expenses for insured women. While the act broke barriers for annual screenings, it did not include costly diagnostic testing. Early detection does not stop at the annual mammogram. In 2022, the Mammovan screened just over 2,400 patients, with 421 of those needing further diagnostic testing. 16 of those had a positive biopsy for breast cancer. 31 women chose not to follow up for reasons including high deductibles. Brenda Robinson, an insured African American, was 48 years old when she came to the Mammovan. She was faced with feeding her family or getting screened. Brenda knew that something was wrong with her breast, but after 2 false negatives due to density and a $6,000 deductible, she could not afford another screening. For 2 years, cancer invaded her body before she received imaging and treatment for triple-negative breast cancer. This bill will greatly impact lives such as Brenda's. It will improve the odds for our caseworkers on the Mammovan to get those 31 women into diagnostic screening and save more lives. The Mammovan fully supports Senate Bill 330. We ask that this committee pass Senate Bill 330 to eliminate out-of-pocket costs for diagnostic imaging, whether for diagnosis or follow-up to treatment. Let's stand together in the fight against breast cancer. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else in Las Vegas wishing to testify in support, or are you the only one in the room?
I am the only one.
Thank you. Broadcast, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in support of Senate Bill 330?
Callers, if you'd like to testify in support of Senate Bill 330, please press star 9 or raise hand in your Zoom window now to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no callers in support at this time.
Thank you. We will move to testimony in opposition. Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 330? Still no one in Las Vegas, right? Just want to double check.
That is correct.
Thank you. Broadcast, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in opposition?
Callers, if you'd like to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 330, please press star 9 or raise hand in your Zoom window now to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no callers in opposition at this time.
Thank you. We will move to neutral testimony. Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to testify in neutral?
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, my name is Helen Foley, and I'm representing the Nevada Association of Health Plans. I wholeheartedly agree with Senator Lang and her frustration, as well as Mr. Urick's. I would like to point out to you that commercial insurers in Nevada cover less than 18% of Nevadans for insurance. That means that 82% of the women in Nevada will not be covered by this bill. Medicaid, not covered. State insurance, not covered. And I have to ask the question, why? When Senator Lang spoke about prevention, it would be far less expensive to keep people out of surgery, hopefully help them with with early intervention and be able to deal with this. But quite often, and I know that this is a fiscal issue, we have a short session, but it's always state employees and Medicaid and, oh, the state of Nevada cannot afford to cover these things. Local governments also do not want to participate in this. So who are you covering? Less than 18% of Nevadans. I think we, if not now, maybe during the interim, have a serious discussion on so easily rejecting Medicaid and public employees on issues that are this important and could save lives and actually, in the long run, become very cost effective. We do not oppose this legislation, but I just felt it my obligation to come before you and share with you that you're talking about less than 18% of Nevadans that you're covering with this legislation. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else in Carson City wishing to testify in neutral? Broadcast, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in neutral to Senate Bill 330?
Callers, if you'd like to testify in neutral for Senate Bill 330, please press star 9 or raise hand in your Zoom window now to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no callers in neutral at this time.
Thank you. Senator, would you like to give any closing remarks? Or Mrs. Barnes?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Again, for the record, my name is Paige Barnes with the Ferrado Company here today on behalf of the Nevada Cancer Coalition. We appreciate the remarks from Ms. Foley. Again, pointing back to our presentation, Medicaid and Medicare already cover this, and this bill does not prohibit PEB and the local government public employee plans from doing this. We hope that they do. We hope that this becomes the norm in the state. So thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you. I will now close the hearing on Senate Bill 330. I will now open the hearing on Senate Bill 437, which revises provisions governing accounts. I believe we have Mrs. Winfeld and Mrs. Peterson to present today. Ms. Winfeld, did I say your last name correct?
Windfeld, yes.
Perfect. You both may begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair and the committee. Thank you for listening to our testimony. My name is Vicki Windfeld, Windfeldt, and I'm the Executive Director for the Nevada State Board of Accountancy. And I'm just going to very quickly go through this bill, and if you have any questions, be glad to answer them at the end.
Can you move the microphone a little closer to you?
Yeah. Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. All right, thank you. And also with me is Karen Peterson, and she's the board's legal counsel. Section 1 adds firms to the definition of practice of public accountancy.
Section 2 changes the experience requirement to 1 year in public accounting, industry, and governmental, and this is in line with the Uniform Accountancy Act. I did want to note that 45 states and jurisdictions currently have the 1 year experience requirement, and so we would be falling in line with that language and the requirement as well as the other states. Section 3 moves moral character reference requirements to licensing rather than for the exam. It's just following with our procedures and what we do in office. Section 4, currently the language requires the board to have fees associated with our application for the exam, and the board would like to be able to waive fees in certain situations, specifically for the military, and that would be active members, spouses, and veterans in the military would be able to waive the exam if this section were amended. And then Section 5 allows the board to waive certain requirements for individuals that have been working and licensed 4 out of the last 10 years. Currently, it just allows that waiver for a practice of public accounting. This would allow for industry and governmental experience as well. And then Section 6 through 21 are conforming changes to remove the requirement for firms to register if they're licensed and active and in good standing in their home jurisdiction. It's referred to as firm mobility or practice privilege. And so currently we have the requirement for out-of-state firms to register a one-page form, pay a fee, if they provide audit, review, and full disclosure compilations to a Nevada client in this state. We adopted individual mobility, which removes that requirement for licensure in 2009. And now what this is doing is allowing firms that same privilege of being able to enter the state without having to notice. Also, 54 jurisdictions have individual mobility with active legislation in Hawaii and CNMI. And then 33 jurisdictions have firm mobility already, with 2 states, including ours, with active legislation. And I did want to add that firms can be verified on the National License Database Program, which is called CPA Verify, where any firm or individual can be verified of their active license, or on the home state's website. And also that firms must be licensed in their home state before entering the state here. Also, I wanted to add that practice privilege allows the board, if for some reason we had to discipline an individual, even if they didn't require registration with us, and we do have that ability if there were harm to the public in Nevada. That's the end of my presentation, and thank you.
Thank you. Are you ready? Oh.
Madam Chair, thank you, and members of the committee. Karen Peterson, I'm the board's attorney. And I wanted to let you know that there was an amendment on the Senate side that we requested, just a couple tweaks to some of the language, and the Senate approved that. And it wasn't because there was opposition to the bill from somebody or clarification from somebody else, but those were our amendments. So that's it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for letting us know that. Are you ready for questions? Perfect. Committee members, are there any questions? I don't think so. That's what happens when you present on Friday afternoon. We will move to testimony in support. Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to testify in support of Assembly Bill 437? You may begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair Marzola. My name is Anna Durst, D-U-R-S-T. I am the CEO of the Nevada Society of CPAs. I am also a Nevada CPA myself. We support SB 437, excuse me, as we feel adopting a statute that aligns with the UAA and so many other states will allow more CPAs to come in to the state to perform necessary duties. It'll make things less confusing, and it will also help to eliminate inadvertent noncompliance, which sometimes happens when your home state has one rule and you go into a state with another rule. Thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else wishing to testify in support here in Carson City? I don't see anyone in Las Vegas. Broadcast, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in support of Senate Bill 437?
Callers, if you'd like to testify in support of Senate Bill 437, please press star 9 or raise hand in your Zoom window now to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no callers in support at this time.
Thank you. We'll move to testimony in opposition to Senate Bill 437. Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to testify in opposition? I don't see anyone. Broadcast, is there anyone on the line?
If you'd like to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 437, please press star 9 or raise hand in your Zoom window now to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no callers in opposition at this time.
Thank you. Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to testify in neutral to Senate Bill 437? Broadcast, is there anyone on the line?
If you'd like to testify in neutral for Senate Bill 437, please press star 9 or raise hand in your Zoom window now to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no callers in neutral at this time.
Thank you. Mrs. Monfeld, would you like to give closing remarks?
Vicki Winfelt, for the record, I just wanted to thank everyone for their time today and hearing our bill. Have a good weekend.
Thank you for being here with us on a Friday afternoon. I will now close the hearing on Senate Bill 437. I will now open up for public comment. Please address your remarks to issues that fall within the jurisdiction of this committee. Public comment is set for 2 minutes. Please remember to state and spell your name. Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to give public comment? I don't see anyone in Las Vegas. Broadcast, is there anyone on the line?
If you'd like to provide public comment, please press star 9 or raise hand in your Zoom window now to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no callers wishing to provide public comment at this time.
Thank you so much. This concludes our meeting for today. Our next meeting will be Monday, May 8th. This meeting is adjourned.